Hi, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. On this beautiful winter's day, I'm out here in my kitchen garden because there's a few things to do. I've got my apple tree to uncover, I've got my red and my black currants to prune, I've got herbs to mulch and a boysenberry that needs to be under control, along with these grasses. There doesn't ever seem a time when my kitchen garden's not producing something. I've got my citrus here. The lemons, I'm just finishing the old lemons, but the new ones are already just about ready. I've got my huge lime tree behind me and the limes are beautiful and juicy. I've also got my mandarin tree. It's an imperial mandarin and they are just coming along now. I've also got this Maya lemon tree, which is the youngest citrus in the garden. That's produced 8 fruit. It's kind of pulling it over, so I've got lots of branches coming out this way to balance it out. And there's more flowers and baby fruit coming along, so you know this plant's pretty happy. Now there's not a lot I do to manage my citrus trees, except for what I do for most of my productive trees, which you've seen in a recent video, is just pile a lot of manure, garden clippings, grasses and just tree debris underneath it, just to make sure we're building that soil and improving the fertility. But with this little orange tree, whose leaves are a lot lighter at the top there, I'm just adding a bit of extra nitrogen in the form of urine next to it to see if that helps. Now I've just noticed some little aphids at the top of this growing point here, so I might get round and just wash those off. But we'll catch up with that later. First up, I want to get this net off this apple tree. Now, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did harvest all the apples and I used them for apple cider. So there's only a few apples to come off the tree, which I'll be enjoying to eat. Now, back then, I did prune off most of the branches that kind of were poking through this netting, but I couldn't quite reach those ones, so I'll just have to kind of give it a yank and hope they come out okay, which might prove harder than it should be. I've also got boysenberry growing through the mesh, which doesn't help, so I might have to get my secateurs and give that a bit of a trim before we can be successful. Now I do grow plants fairly close in the kitchen garden, and while it seems to be a bit of a problem having this apple tree so close to my boysenberry, it's only a couple of times a year that it proves to be sort of a bit of an issue. And really, it's worth maximising the space and just kind of dealing with this sort of thing as the issue comes up. So really, this frees the net, but it also prunes back my boysenberry. Okay, that might have freed up the net now. And I just hold it down with bits of timber that can move easily out. Now the problem with things growing through the net is because I have to have the net on so long, birds in the area will eat off young fruit, well, they'll eat off flowers even. So you've kind of got to have it covered most of the year. And you'll notice these rhubarb plants are pretty close here too. I'm growing lots of rhubarb, so if I step on a few of these leaves, it doesn't really matter. It kind of just helps mulch the soil, really. Now, hard to know the best way to get this net off, which is probably why it's still on. Should have come off when I harvested most of the apples. Sounds like the other apples are dropping off the tree, which will make harvest easy. Oh, we're going for it now. Here we go. Okay, one apple tree released from its netting. Will make it a lot easier getting those last few apples. Only a couple of dodgy apples left on the tree now. We got this small harvest here. Now this tree, unlike my other tree, has a bit of a scab issue, which is really only skin deep, but which is why I put most of these apples into a cider, because crushing that down, it doesn't really affect the juice that comes out of it. It's just not very appealing to eat, although you could probably just peel it and use it and eat it, or use it in cooking. But there were some that looked just like this, which is a perfect eating apple really. Now they're called a Crips Pink, and it's June now, so it's a late ripening variety. One fruit that's just about ready to pick is this kiwi fruit. So we've got one here, and there's another one hiding just under here. There would have been more if I'd got my varieties right. I thought this was the male to start with, and I pulled off flowers to pollinate the female, which is the other plant, but I got it round the wrong way. But I feel pretty lucky that I got 2 fruit out of it, and I'll be enjoying those pretty soon. One thing I have noticed about my kitchen garden as it's getting older, most of the plants have been in about 7 years now, is that you get the harvest raging through the year. So it starts with my red currants, which are probably late spring, followed by my berry plants. The raspberries, it fruits twice a year because I don't prune it down. I get some in spring and then some in autumn. So we get red currants, then the raspberries, then my blueberries seem to kick in. Then it kind of moves through to apple season. My Jonagold is a lot earlier than the Crips Pink, which we've just finished off. And then it kicks into citrus. Sort of the fresh eating citrus is like my mandarin tree. Hopefully, if my orange tree gets up there, that will come in following the mandarin. But we've also got the kiwi fruit now, which comes in sort of at the start of winter. So if you can plan your harvest, oh yeah, I forgot about the blackcurrant, which comes in probably at the end of December into January. If you can plan your plantings, that you can spread the enjoyment of your own homegrown fruit throughout the year. And then when the plants produce plenty, like with my apple trees, I generally dehydrate a lot of apples, and that will take you through the thin part of the year, sort of late winter into early spring when nothing is really producing. I would recommend you checking out one of my earlier videos. It was about video 3, so please kind of consider that if you do choose to watch it. But it explains how I thought about the plantings in my garden and how I space them out in this really relatively small area. It produces quite a lot of food, and with some planting it does spread the harvest throughout the year. And I kind of forget about my rhubarb, because where I am in my climate, rhubarb can be harvested just about all through the year. I usually chop it up, stew it, add in a little bit of honey. Can't beat that. Up next on my list of things to do, we're heading over to my red currant, which needs a bit of a prune. Now, something I've recently learned is you can't just let your currant plants go and expect them to produce each season. This plant, I did chop back a little bit just to get around it, really. So it produced some currants in December. And my black currant, well, I've just kind of let it go and expand. And last season, I didn't get anything off it. And after one of my viewers let me know that you really need to prune them back to maintain a productive plant, I decided this season I better have a go at both of them. So this is my red currant plant, one of the early plantings in the garden. As far as I know, you've got to take out the kind of the darker woody material and perhaps leave this lighter stuff in, which is more likely to produce the fruit. So I'm just going to get in with my loppers and lop it. I might have to go slowly because there's a lot in the way. I'll get these big ones out. Now, what I'll often do with these trimmings is just pop them in a bucket of water, and they develop roots off them. Probably you could just stick them into really moist soil and they would grow roots as well. But another way you can get plants is by what they call stool layering. With this branch here, it had lots of organic material dumped on it, and the branch was kind of held to the ground. So I've got areas where I've got roots coming out, and I'll be able to just chop those off, plant those, perhaps out in my swale, and get some new currant plants growing. So yeah, definitely be saving those. I've got quite a few trimmings from that plant, which I can put into water or probably just bury it under organic material. And who knows, it'll probably root there. I've thinned it quite a bit. I've taken out all the branches that were kind of almost lying on the ground down there, and I've left these kind of younger branches in that I read are the ones that's likely to fruit on. I'm not sure if it's second year or first year. Must be second year that they fruit on. But anyway, we'll see how this goes. I've left some of the older branches because it sort of seems like there's newer shoots up the top, so I'll see if they do any good with flowers and fruit come spring. So now I'm going to attempt to do the same with this blackcurrant plant, which is basically taking up one whole corner of the garden. Now this is one large shrub planted 7 years ago, although sort of down there, maybe where some of the branches have been in contact with the soil, it might have sort of put down roots and expanded the base. But basically I've got to cut these old branches and leave those kind of younger shoots going up. Some of the old branches do have these young shoots coming up, so I'll just have to decide what I do as I get in there. Okay, I'm going in. I'm just hacking back whatever just to get a foothold in here, so to speak. I'll try and get some of the low-lying branches and really get them out of there. Just trying to clear this branch that I've just chopped, and you can see that it's rooted in the ground, and that's actually another little plant there coming through. So I might get my fork onto that, get that out of there, and definitely plant that out somewhere else. Well, the soil's nice and soft, should come up okay. Oh yeah, that's a decent plant. So this is the end that I've just snipped off, and it's touched the soil, rooted, and we've already got this beautiful little plant here. Makes me wonder how many other plants we're going to find in here. And here's another two. Plenty of roots on that one. A few more plants. Well, I've just got in and got the job done. This is a lot smaller than it was, and that was the first time I've really gone to town on it and pruned it. Leave a note in the comments if you think I could have gone harder. But there's plenty of these young shoots that are going up, and on the plant you can see lots of the new little shoots, so hopefully that just shoots up onto some of these fruiting branches. We'll see come spring what this plant does. Now I also discovered a new little plant here, much like the one I just dug up. It's kind of just had a branch touching the ground, and it's rooted and resulted in this beautiful little plant. So I think I'm going to leave that there, and if I keep this maintained and fruiting better, then perhaps I'll just have a few plants around rather than this one huge one, and that might give me a bit more produce. So before I move on to the next project of the morning, I'm going to just replant this, kind of have a triangle effect with my black currants. Oh, this soil is pretty good. Wow, it's pretty good soil there. Now I reckon that'll be deep enough. You can see all these fine roots, and that's from that big black currant. And you can see them up here. They kind of just spread along the ground. So we'll get that, pop that in there. Now I've just got some of my decomposed wood chip that I've been spreading around the front garden lately. So I think this little plant will enjoy a bit of that. And actually that might be all it needs for the moment. That end of the garden's looking pretty good now with the black currant a bit smaller. The next thing we need to look at doing is right here next to my boysenberry plant. At this time, well, all times of year, it seems to send out these runners and they take off around the garden, and you really don't want this taking hold anywhere. So I try and drag those up and out of the ground where it's kind of reached out to. There's usually a lot of roots on it, and you can share those plants or pop them up to move somewhere else. I just don't know if I want this sort of plant out in my swales to have to manage. And also, we've got the issue of all these grasses. Now, I had been managing it fairly well, but under my rosemary bush, that's where it seemed to start. And I can't kind of get in there to clear it out properly. So from time to time, it just kind of spreads out across the garden, and I really need to manage that. So with gloves on, because this stuff's very prickly, and my sickle, hopefully we can kind of drag this out from where it's gone to. Well, there's one little runner. There's another one. As with the current plants that we saw, anywhere they touched the ground, they rooted and started a new plant. Same with this guy. You've got to be very careful with where you dispose of it. Otherwise, you'll end up with masses of plants everywhere. Now, I've got vines that have run in all under my citrus trees. But if you get them early enough and they haven't rooted, you can kind of just drag it in. Oh. Well, that was just in time, I say, because that was going to just root itself, so I couldn't have pulled that out. But that would be a good one to pot up and share with a friend if they want a aggressive berry plant. The berries are pretty good though. You just got to put up with the plant. Sometimes you do have to get in there and dig up plants that have taken hold. Now I tend to do this once a year, and I've found that that's often enough. All right, a little challenging, but you get there. Well, it's taken a little bit of work, but I have dug up the grasses. They were really starting to root in this area here, so it was good to get on top of those before they kind of spread throughout the rest of the garden, and I'll just have to kind of manage them as best I can up this corner. And I've also dragged out all those vines that were creeping everywhere, and there were quite a number of plants that were already beginning to root and start that new plant going. So it's good to be on top of that. Now the next thing we need to do is to deal with some herbs. Now it was probably a few months ago I was in here and I planted out some herbs. You can maybe spot the sage in there. There's some thyme over the back there, some peppermint and some oregano around. But as you can see, things have taken off with other plants that we aren't really choosing for them to be here. So from time to time, I just need to get in here and deal with a lot of these plants. There's a lot of radishes that have grown in here that have I'd left a couple of seeding radish plants and they took off. So we've got to get them under control from time to time. But they form a great mulch, so you can just kind of whip around your plants and mulch up the chosen ones. Now I have added in a couple of salvia plants that I got at a permaculture group. So they're in here. So I'll get them mulched as well. I'm not sure what colour. I think there might be a red flower on these little plants. Now my garden's always amazing to me. I'm always surprised at, you know, if you ask for it, you get plants. This one is a red Russian kale, which in my recent video, I found a few little seedlings out in the front garden, and it was like, you know, someone was answering my prayers to get some of those little plants going. And here we are in my kitchen garden. I've got the same thing happening. Something sort of satisfying about nurturing your little plants. Oh, I've just snapped off some of my other thyme. Tell you what, how giving plants are. I just accidentally cut that one off, but look, I've got a little bit of root on it, so I might just pop that up. And I've given it a water there, and it's at home with my other potted herbs. So now I will be really careful to not dig that plant up, but to mulch it carefully. It's actually doing a lot better than this other thyme. I've got one they call thyme, and this one's called pizza thyme. So I don't know if it's been kind of a manufactured herb or what, but it's loving life here. With this little bit of garden sorted, we can move onto the back there. Now it's fairly challenging in this bit of garden because I've planted a couple of peppermint plants. One's here. I mean, they do die off at this time of year, so it's kind of hard to spot them to give them some love. And hiding in here is a oregano plant, which often they die away at this time of year, but at least you can still identify that one. Over the back here somewhere is my other peppermint plant. I'm sure I put it in there somewhere. Maybe that's it. It's always good to hold back a few plants to replace some if they don't really take off, and I reckon that might be it. It's not looking good though, but maybe the roots are still alive down there. Well, actually, there we go. It is the peppermint. It's still down there, doing its thing and starting to spread around. Excellent. I don't mind that taking off in this garden. And a closer look at the first plant we looked at, you can see this is what mints like to do. It's heading off along the ground, and come spring, that will really come to life. I'm planning on harvesting lots of peppermint leaves for teas. So in here, I'm just going to mulch my oregano. And I'll probably just leave those mints to do their thing. Although I'll just tidy up a bit of all of this, just kind of cut it down and cover over the soil. I've chopped down all those weedy species and used it as a mulch. And I've just been reminded by this bag here that this is what I did last time I filmed in the kitchen garden. I cut out lots of the lemon balm and just put it in a bag, and it's all definitely died off now, so I'm just going to add it back in underneath my lime tree, and that'll add to the mulch layer. And I don't think I need to be worried that it's going to take root, although, hang on. Oh, actually, whoa. Here I am thinking I'm being clever by parking it for a long time, but look at that. That's been in that bag through hot days. And that plant still wants to keep going. I think it might have got a little bit of moisture in there just recently. And look, it's just taking off again. I think it might go back into the bag, and I'll just put it in a dry area for much longer before I even consider using that as mulch. So please ignore what I was just saying just then. We'll park that. We'll make sure it's not exposed to any moisture, and we'll see if we can really kill it off. It might take a year, I'm not sure. All right, that's unbelievable. Now, for anyone who doesn't know lemon balm, that's it here. Nice lemony fragrance, and people do use it in teas, although I haven't really used it. Now, it does like to take over whole areas, and a few months ago I did spend a bit of time kind of digging that up, which is what was in that bag. But I tell you what, some of these plants just love life and love to take over, and lemon balm is one of them. Isn't that lemon balm amazing? Another amazing plant in my garden is the blueberry plants. Now, last year I didn't have any blueberries off these plants because they were smothered in raspberry plants, but the raspberries have kind of mostly left them alone. They fought for light last year and grew a lot, and now they're quite large, and already you can see the flower buds are coming, so I'm sure I'm going to have plenty of blueberries at the end of the year. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to deal with my red currant and black currant cuttings and also those little plants just to make the most of them. I might pop some out in the swales. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.